Hello again, thank you for joining me for another video. So recently I did a little poll where I asked what made people feel the most safe, if it was like having tools to protect yourself spiritually, or physical tools to protect yourself, like literally physically, or friends or family or money, or what made people feel safe. And the thing that people voted the most for was spiritual tools to make them protected in a spiritual sense. And so I thought I would make a video on the tools that you can use to make yourself spiritually safe. And I guess the most important thing about the whole being safe spiritually is to understand what you're dealing with. So before you can ever begin to utilize spiritual tools in an effective manner, you have to understand the actual reality that you're living in. And it is rare to find people that actually do. So they might play in the fields of the spiritual, but that doesn't mean they see in a like you can see this realm, but that isn't to say that you understand the scope of what this realm is contained within. And from these bodies, we are limited. In this realm, we are limited because there is an aspect here, obviously, of negativity. And so anything that does not want to be subjected to, resonant with, interfaced with that negativity is pretty, it's not completely impossible to access, but pretty close to impossible to access from here, unless you had some hardcore abilities to set boundaries in a spiritual sense. So that's the first thing you have to realize. Most people aren't even awake to spirituality. They're completely conditioned by the body that they're living in. Completely conditioned by the body that they're living in, as the person that they're living as, the people that they're surrounded in, the things that they care about immensely, which would not at all relate if you put them in a different time, space, or environment. Your true essence, who would you be if you were on a purple planet 10,000 years in the future, where dolphins had grown legs, and you got to go play tennis with them once a week? What part of you would still exist in that scenario? That's the part of you that you should be cultivating, not the part of you that argues about stuff that doesn't matter. And the more you can tune into the part of you that is actually more flexible and adaptable, the easier it is for you to deal with the spiritual tomfoolery that we are subjected to at the moment. The whole vibe has been to separate from the creative aspect of the mind. So a real division between the past and the future. If you don't believe you can create the future, then you're not going to be messing with other people's agendas regarding it. And it might not even be other people's agendas regarding the future. it could be a very simple algorithm. The algorithm wants to complete its job, and that involves you staying out of the way and not thinking about the future. We love to have bad guys. It could be a simple flaw in the coding that has infiltrated our reality. It's better to not think you know everything and to look at the easiest thing to grab onto that makes sense. I wish I knew how to make videos in a way that was real simple. But I don't speak that way, and I don't think that way. I think in layers. And the parts of your mind that is missing the truth about those layers is the part I am speaking to. And I'm purposely making it confusing for the people that I don't have time for, because they are still adamantly connected to an ideology that is clearly not working. Because I don't want any part of it. So I'm gonna speak weird and expect you to hear between the lines. So the tools that I have used to protect myself spiritually. First step, wake up. Wake up to the fact that this is not all that there is, that there is a whole spiritual world. And in the same way that you've been lied to about this place, the physical reality that you can see in front of your very eyes, so too have you been lied to about spiritual things. And you have to have a faith that is strong enough to understand the voice that tells the truth. You have to believe there is a voice that will tell you the truth, and you have to recognize it when you hear it. In a knowing, in a gut check. And I want to participate in that. So it is not done to you, but you are participating. What is the truth that you want to participate in? That makes sense, that feels like that's where I'm supposed to be. That's how I remember reality operating. That's how I think it could operate in the future. So you take yourself out of the subject role and into that co-author role. Because if you don't want to be a part of something, you won't be. Nobody drags you along. You go willingly. So waking up to that is the most important tool to keep yourself safe in a spiritual sense. The second to that are like the basics of, in the same way that you have to keep your body healthy, you have to keep your spirit healthy. You can't ignore aspects of your body. You have to pay attention to them. You have to clean your body. You have to feed your body. You have to take your body out for exercise. The same is true for the spirit. You have to keep it healthy. You have to not put stuff in your mind. The mind is the interface between the spirit and the body. You can't put bad stuff into your mind and think it's not going to pollute your spirit. It will pollute your spirit. And your spirit will have to circumvent that stuff and waste energy and waste time. Clear the mind as much as you can by not inputting it with crap, number one. That isn't to say like you have to be some kind of ascetic, that, you don't have to turn Amish. But you do need to be very particular with what you're doing. So if you imbibe in movies, if you imbibe in books, music, you need to be transmuting everything into the language of love, messages, symbols, metaphors. Nothing is what it is on the surface. Everything now is part of your story, and you transmute everything. And taking care of the body by basic health care will make it easier to take care of your mind. The more tired and malnourished you are, the harder it is to have the energy to say no, and the willpower and discipline to say no to some of those low-hanging fruit. You know, so you try to get charged up with energy by way of the discordant energies that exist in, like, arousal forms, or fear forms, things like that, because you're looking for energy. If you feed your body really well and you don't pollute your mind, your spirit can actually pump in some energy to you, get to you. But you can't have energy coming in and charging up thoughts of, I think of some of the rated R movies that are, pretty, some of them can be pretty raunchy. They can also be pretty violent. They can have bad messaging that you don't want these things amplified by spiritual energy and being sent manifest into the world. And so your spirit will restrict itself. And if that's all that's going on in your mind, then you're going to think, oh, I don't have spiritual energy. Spiritual energy doesn't exist. And it's just that it's not going to charge up. It's an intelligent force that is not going to charge up someone who is not paying attention to what they're manifesting. A lot of times we think that we're in the middle of a spiritual attack, when what is happening is that we have fallen into a trap that will loop information, and it doesn't get in if we don't allow it to. So the first protection is not allowing in stuff that have a negative vibe to it. Don't willfully harm yourself. What a spiritual attack is, willfully harming yourself as if you don't matter. That is the foundation of spiritual attack, believing that you don't matter. And then willfully bringing and calling death to yourself by these forms of disregarding your spirit, disregarding the physical, disregarding the potential for joy. Now, we might not be receiving a lot of joy in the world right now. It might be small, little, tiny little drops of joy, because it's not our time. We're not ripe yet. We're not in that flow at the moment. At the moment, other things are getting worked out, but that doesn't mean that the joy isn't there. It's just not manifested at the moment. And that is just the higher intelligence working shit out that we might not be able to see. But I know that joy is possible, so I try not to get discouraged, because the whole game, if you will, is about faith and courage and truthfulness and reading frequency, essentially. It's like learning a new language. The only way you learn this language is by coming to this goddamn realm and walking through it. So, salt is one of the greatest purifiers. It also works for spiritual energy. Put some salt water, clear your field. You put your hands together. It balances your field, right and left. If you put your right hand on your left knee, and you put your left hand on your right knee, it helps to calm and center your body so that both sides of your brain can actually function. Mudras with your hands are actually really quite effective tools for aligning spirit and body together. And do what feels comfortable. Move your fingers around until you find the ones that feel comfortable, that feel like, oh, that was the energy, that was the thing that cleared the energy up and down my body and opened my mind up. Like sometimes you don't even realize that you like everything is closed up here, and then you'll just hold your hands in just a certain way, and it's like you can take a breath inside your brain again. Do some yoga. It helps to get those channels functioning again. If you can call in and receive more spiritual energy, your buffer grows. You get a little buffer. It goes out a little farther, and then when people do obnoxious things around you, it doesn't affect you as much. But between the time of no buffer and creating a buffer, it's painful. People will trigger you. Their energies are uncomfortable, and you feel them. When you're not awake, you just think you're having a bad day. Everything is your own fault. You get awake, you realize you're really affected by other people's moods. And there's nothing you can do to stop them from being assholes. You have to figure out a way to increase this little boundary in a comfortable manner, so you're not sitting there having to, wear a chain of 15 crystals around your neck, so that you're not having to go around with holy water to deal with regular people who are just stupid. They're just ignorant. They don't know. Most of them are possessed. It isn't so much. You're going to be fine. Chances of you getting possessed if you were listening to my video are pretty fucking slim. You can take that to the bank. You're 18 minutes and you're still listening to me? No. You aren't the one getting possessed. What you will have to be paying attention to is how you interact with the people who are. And I don't mean possessed like, oh, fallen angels that possess the human body, they don't need to do that. But I have noticed that people are very easily persuaded by basic brainwashing, basic conditioning, basic stories that aren't healthy, aren't true, and aren't positive. They don't positively vibe. And so those people can really kind of impact you if given the chance. Because it's like dealing with a non-person, like a person who's just playing a role. Like they're not awake to these things, and so they're just playing a role. So you get all your stuff straight, right? You get through your healing of your triggers, your PTSD. You get through the healing of, oh shit, okay, this spiritual shit is real. I didn't know the extent. Now you have to rewrite your whole understanding of reality. You're still in the physical world, so somehow you have to make sense of how are these spiritual forces interacting on this realm, and where do I fit in, and how could this possibly be? And then, after all of that, now you have to watch human beings not in control of their own bodies. And then the spiritual test is to not take advantage of them, to not harm them, and to have faith on their behalf. That's standing the gap. and it covers a multitude of sins. That's an act of love and compassion that covers a multitude of sins. And it's a form of transmutation. And it grows your buffer. And that you don't get that buffer grown so that you're still maintaining peace even when it seems like something that maybe triggered you a year ago, now you can handle it. So you grew your buffer. Now, if some bad mojo comes into your field, like, there's lots of different means that these things can happen. The second you sense it, ask for help. We do have limited sight from our bodies, but we can feel. So I might not fully comprehend in a way that I can explain to you what and who and how I'm asking for help. But I know that when I ask for help, help comes. And that's what I bank on. I don't need to bank on anything else. I think one of the nice phrases that people have discovered and offered to each other is, it's not happening to you, it's happening for you. And it's just a way, all things work for good for those who love Him. That's the scriptural basis of that phrase. And it's just trusting. It is having some trust that everything maybe isn't perfect, but there's a plan here. There's a movement towards. There's a part you are unfolding that could make things more perfect in a way that is beyond sight at the moment. I think sometimes we have to accept that we don't know the whole shebang. And being willing is an act of love while we don't know the whole shebang. As long as we have a teachable spirit to do good, to be good, to feel good, to know good, that's what we're aligning with. And sometimes people will come along because we were accidentally trying to go to the same place at the same time. And don't get possessive of a thing that's already yours in the process of unfolding. Because it's in that act of possessiveness that possession occurs. So if you're gonna be possessed by faith. And faith is detachment in its truest sense. It is trust in its truest sense. With all that said, when I feel like, so I go through loops of my karma that's already it's conditioned in my body. Memories come back around, things trigger memories. I have real PTSD, I don't have fake PTSD, I have clinical PTSD. And so things come around and I have to process it out. My body reacts, I have to process it out. That's part of the the difficult situation that we find ourselves in. Our bodies have memories for things also that our mind might not have memories of. And that's a confusing place to be. And then all the gaslighting that goes with it. And so in those times, I call on my spiritual team for help. If it feels particularly threatening, I call on Jesus. I think sometimes people assume once you've gotten into enlightenment, spiritual awakening, and mantras and mudras and Brahma and Shiva, that you might not still need a reminder that name might call to you. But the name does call a reminder to when I was young and didn't know anything. And if that's what's gotten triggered in me, that's what I use, because using that then led to me where I am now. It doesn't lead me astray. It's okay. It's okay to use the faith of your youth. It does not take away from the knowledge you have gained in your life now and that you are adding to yourself. It's okay to be a child in that way, in that like, I don't know. I know this worked for me once. There was a time where I needed to like call on angels, and I needed to like imagine them surrounding me. I had like a team of angels that would surround me in my room. I'd have a team of monks out on the ground all around. I'd have like dragons up in the air. I needed like a complete, every ounce of my mind imagining my spiritual space protected. And now I know that I've done it so many times that I know I don't need a lot of mental effort to recall those images, because I practiced it. I sat and practiced it. I practiced clearing my mind of everything. The spiritual tools are largely mental. Once you stop harming yourself, if you don't stop harming yourself, you're inviting it in. You must make a declaration that you don't want to harm yourself and ask for help, that no more harm is done to you. All things work for good for those who love Him. Work together for good for those who love Him. And it's just a way of understanding that that higher intelligence that exists, that doesn't hate you. The higher intelligence that exists does not hate you. The higher intelligence is you are part of it, and it is part of you. And it isn't owned. It isn't a possessive thing. It's beyond what you open up to it as you are able to. Like when you're a baby, you have milk, and then you go on to soft foods, and then before you know it, you're gnawing on bones. Eventually you eat food from other sources, and you get energy in other ways. So I just rambled a whole bunch. Hopefully that helped somebody. Alright, till next time, take care.